I had surgery and my 4 children promised they would take turns staying with me. Day 1, nobody. Day 2, nobody. Day 7. The nurse asked me if I had any family. On day 15, I was discharged and I ordered an Uber. When I arrived home, I woke up with a dry throat and a pain that went through my abdomen as if I'd been split in 2. The hospital lights were too white, too cold. I moved my head looking for a hand to hold, a familiar voice to tell me that everything had gone well. Nothing, just the constant beeping of the machines and the squeak of rubber soles against the floor. A nurse came in checking papers without looking at me. "How are you feeling, Mrs. Emily?" I wanted to answer, but the words drowned when I remembered the last image before entering the operating room. My 4 children all standing around my stretcher with serious expressions and promises that sounded like an oath. "Do not worry, Mom. We are going to take turns staying with you." Michael, my eldest son, had put his hand on mine. "You will not be alone for a single day, I promise." David nodded. Sarah even had tears in her eyes. And Daniel, my 33-year-old baby, kissed my forehead saying, "Everything is going to be fine, Mommy." But when I opened my eyes after the surgery, I only found white sheets and silence. If this story is stirring something inside you, subscribe to the Elderly Stories channel for more tales that will make you reflect on family and dignity. The first day I thought they would be late, that the Chicago traffic had trapped them, that some emergency held them back. I checked my phone every 5 minutes. Nothing. Not a single call. Only cold messages in the family group chat. "Sorry, Mom, something came up at work." "Sorry, the kids are sick." "I cannot today. Maybe tomorrow." By the second day, the physical pain mixed with another type of pain. That pain that tightens your chest and makes you doubt your own worth. Had I not been enough of a mother? Had I not raised these children well for whom I sacrificed every dream of my own? 23 years raising 4 children alone after their father died in that factory accident. 23 years without vacations, without rest, without a moment for myself. And there I was, fresh out of a complicated gallbladder surgery, staring at the ceiling of a public hospital, while they went on with their lives as if I did not exist. On the 3rd day, I stopped checking the phone so frequently. On the 4th day, I stopped waiting. On the 5th day, I started walking the hospital corridors alone, dragging the IV drip, biting my lips not to cry in front of the other patients who did have family by their side. On the 7th day, Nurse Jenny, a young woman with kind eyes, sat on the edge of my bed with a worried expression. "Mrs. Emily, do you have family?" The question hit me like a bucket of cold water. "I have 4 children," I replied, and my own voice sounded hollow as if it came from very far away. She said nothing else, but her look of pity told me everything. In that moment, I understood that for the rest of the world, I was an abandoned old woman. One more of those sad stories that people comment on with pity and then forget. The following days dragged on between medical checkups, medications, and that emptiness that grows when you realize that no one is coming. None of my children answered my calls. The messages were left on read. The wound in my abdomen was healing slowly, but something inside me was breaking faster than any doctor could repair. On day 15, the doctor discharged me. "You need rest at home, ma'am, and someone to take care of you for at least 2 more weeks." I nodded as if I had someone waiting for me, as if I were not completely alone. I left the hospital with a plastic bag containing my belongings and a prescription for painkillers. The midday sun hit my face, and for a moment I did not know what to do. I took out my phone with shaking hands and opened the Uber app. My fingers trembled as I typed my address. The driver was an older gentleman who asked no questions. Better that way. I could not have explained to him why a 67-year-old woman fresh out of surgery was calling a taxi instead of her family picking her up. During the ride home, I looked out the window at the streets of the suburbs that I knew by heart. The same sidewalks where I taught my children to walk, the same corners where we waited for the bus to go to school. Everything seemed different now, as if the city itself knew that something in me had changed forever. When the car stopped in front of my house, that 2-story house with a brick facade that I bought with my husband's insurance money, I felt a chill. The front door was ajar. I got out of the car slowly, in pain and confused. I had left everything locked tight before going to the hospital. I was always careful with that. I pushed the door with my heart racing, and what I saw upon entering took away the breath I had left. What did Emily find in her own house? The answer will change everything she thought she knew about her children. The living room was a mess. Not like when you leave things out of place by carelessness, but like when someone has searched for something in a hurry and without care. The sofa cushions were crooked. The drawers of the antique cabinet open. Papers scattered on the floor. I walked slowly. Each step was a stab in my abdomen, each breath an effort. Hello. My voice sounded ridiculous in my own house. No one answered. I moved towards the dining room, and that was where I noticed it. The empty space against the wall. The mahogany hutch was no longer there. That hutch that had belonged to my grandma Betty, that survived the war, that had crossed 3 generations of my family. My legs almost gave way. I had to hold onto the doorframe not to fall. It could not be real. Someone had broken in to rob me while I was agonizing in a hospital. I went up the stairs, clinging to the railing, ignoring the pain that screamed at me to stop. I needed to check my bedroom. I needed to know if they had also taken the only thing that really mattered. I pushed the door to my room and the world stopped. My jewelry box was open on the bed. The few jewels I had were there. The costume earrings, a fake pearl necklace, a worthless bracelet, but something was missing. I put my trembling hands in rummaging through every compartment, although I already knew the truth. My late husband's gold ring had disappeared. It was not an expensive ring for other people, but for me, it was worth more than the whole house put together. It was the ring that belonged to Robert's grandfather, passed from father to son for 80 years. My husband put it on my finger the day we celebrated 15 years of marriage, telling me, "This is the only thing of value I have and I want it to be yours." I had promised him on his deathbed, "I will take care of it like I took care of you, my love." And now it was gone. I sat on the bed without strength, my vision blurred. It was then that I saw it, a folded paper on my dresser taped to the mirror. I took it with hands that no longer responded to me and unfolded it. The handwriting was Michael's. "Mom, we sold some things to pay expenses. Do not get mad. They were just old objects you no longer used. The money was needed more. When you recover, we will talk." I read the note 3 times, 4, 5, as if the words were going to change meaning, as if it were a nightmare from which I was about to wake up. Expenses, old objects. My family heritage was old objects to them, my grandmother's memories, the last piece of my husband, all reduced to sellable merchandise to solve their expenses. I looked in the mirror and barely recognized the woman looking back at me. I had a gaunt face, deep, dark circles, completely messy gray hair. But the worst was not my physical appearance. The worst was the emptiness in my eyes. The expression of someone who has just understood that she has been betrayed by the people she loved most in the world. I took my phone and dialed Michael with trembling fingers. He answered on the 3rd ring, his voice casual, almost cheerful. "Mom, did you get out of the hospital? Yet we were thinking of going to see you tomorrow. Where is your father's ring?" I did not shout. My voice came out cold-controlled, dangerous. There was a brief silence, then a sigh. "Mom, we needed money. Jessica and I have debts. The ring gave us $2,000. That is more useful than having it stored away gathering dust. $2,000. They sold 80 years of family history for $2,000. And Grandma Betty's hut. David sold that one. I think he got like $1,200 for it. Look, Mom, I know you are sensitive because of the operation, but it is not a big deal. It is just stuff. We are your family. We matter more than an old ring or a piece of furniture." I hung up. I could not keep listening. I let myself fall onto the bed, hugging my sore abdomen, and for the first time in 15 days, I cried. I cried for my husband who had trusted that I would take care of his legacy. I cried for my grandmother. I cried for the foolish mother I had been, who raised 4 children without teaching them the value of things that cannot be bought with money. But above all, I cried because in that moment, I understood something terrifying. If my children had been capable of selling my memories while I was vulnerable in a hospital, what else would they be capable of doing? The phone vibrated. A message from David in the family chat. "Mom is out of the hospital. Can anyone stop by to see how she is?" Sarah replied. "I cannot. I have 1,000 things to do." Daniel. Later. Maybe. Michael. She is old enough. She knows how to take care of herself. I read them all. Each word was a stab more accurate than the surgeon's scalpel. I stayed there, sitting on my bed in my looted house surrounded by empty spaces where before there was love and memories, and I knew that something inside me had just broken irreparably. But I also knew something else. I was not going to stay a victim crying over what was lost. If my children thought they could treat me like a nuisance they could take advantage of, they were about to meet a version of their mother they had never imagined. What Emily did not know was that the theft of the ring was just the beginning. Her 4 children had a much darker plan, and she was about to discover it. I spent that first night at home without sleeping, looking at the ceiling, feeling every stitch of the surgical wound, mixing with a much worse pain. At dawn, I made a decision. I needed to understand what was really happening. My children had not become thieves overnight. Something bigger was happening. I got up slowly. I brewed fresh coffee just like my mother taught me. I needed something to bring me back to myself, and I sat down to mentally reconstruct each of my children. Not like the blind mother I had been, but as I should have always been. A woman with her eyes wide open. Michael, my 42-year-old firstborn. The son in whom I had placed my hopes the most. I sold even my wedding band to pay for his private university degree in administration. He was the one who was going to succeed, the one who was going to pull us all forward. And he achieved it, supposedly. He had a stable job at a logistics company, a new car, a house in a middle-class gated community. But something never added up. He always borrowed money. He always had an emergency. And he was married to Jessica. Jessica, that 38-year-old woman with perfect nails and designer bags that I knew they could not afford, always with a plastic smile when she visited me, always asking me questions that at the time seemed innocent. Mother-in-law, is this house already in someone's name? Do you have a will? Oh, it is nothing, just to be safe. The signs had been there all the time. I simply did not want to see them. David was my second son, 39 years old, public accountant, the obedient one, the quiet one, the one who never caused problems. Or so I thought. In reality, he was the invisible one, the one who let his wife Karen take all the decisions. Karen, a woman with a shrill voice and big ambitions who worked at a bank and lived obsessed with getting ahead. I had visited them 2 months ago and accidentally overheard an argument. We need that down payment for the apartment, David. Your mom has that huge house all to herself. Cannot you talk to her? My son's voice was barely a whisper. It is not that easy. Then you are useless, she had replied. Remembering that now turned my stomach. My son was a coward controlled by a woman who despised him. Then there was Sarah, my only daughter, 36 years old, the one who always felt I preferred her brothers. No matter how much I tried to prove otherwise, she carried that resentment like a stone around her neck. She had started a bakery business that never took off. The last time we spoke 3 weeks ago, she asked me for $5,000 to invest in new equipment. I told her I did not have that amount. She hung up on me, telling me, "You were always stingy with me, but for Michael, you give everything." And finally, Daniel, my 33-year-old baby, the one who never grew up because I never forced him to, the one who kept living off temporary jobs, the one who changed girlfriends every 6 months, the one who had studied 3 majors without finishing any. A month ago, he came to borrow $2,000 for a medical emergency. I gave him $1,500 from my savings, the only thing I had for my own emergencies. 2 days later, I saw him on Facebook at a casino in Las Vegas. It was not a medical emergency. It was a gambling debt. Everyone lied. Everyone needed money. Everyone was desperate. And I had something everyone wanted, a house in an area that had appreciated incredibly in recent years. A real estate agent had contacted me 6 months ago offering me $450,000 for the property. I did not even consider selling it. This was my house. The only place that was mine. But my children knew the value. Of course they knew. I finished my coffee, feeling how the puzzle pieces fit with painful clarity. The casual visits of the last few months. The questions about important documents. Michael asking where I kept the deeds. David offering to help me organize my papers. Sarah saying that at my age I should plan things in case something happened to me. Daniel asking if I had a will made. They were not visits from worried children. They were reconnaissance missions. They were planning something, all 4 of them. And I had been too naive or too afraid of loneliness to see it. I took my phone and checked the family chat. There was a new message from Jessica addressed to everyone. Family. I think we should all meet to talk about Mom Emily. I am worried about her living alone after the surgery. How about this Sunday at my house? The other three responded quickly, too quickly. David, perfect. Sarah, I will be there. Daniel, yes, we need to talk. They had not even asked me. They were organizing a meeting about my life, about my future, and I was just an agenda item. I felt something new growing inside me. It was not sadness. It was not pain. It was something more dangerous, something colder. It was absolute clarity mixed with a silent rage that had been dormant for years. I stood up, ignoring the pain of the wound. I walked to my room, and from the back of my closet, I took out an old shoebox. Inside was the crumpled card of Mr. Henderson, the lawyer who helped me with Robert's will 20 years ago. A serious man of the kind that no longer exists, who never overcharged me, and who always treated me with respect. It was time to make a call, because if my 4 children wanted to play dirty, they were going to discover that their mother was not the helpless old woman they thought. I still had claws, and I was ready to use them, but Emily did not know the worst yet. Her children not only wanted her house, they had a legal plan to take it from her even if she was still alive. Sunday arrived like a sentencing, inevitable and heavy. I dressed in my ivory linen blouse and my gray trousers, the most dignified ones I had. I combed my hair carefully. I put on the silver earrings Robert gave me on our 10th anniversary. If they were going to try to make me feel like a burden, at least I would not look like one. David picked me up. During the entire ride to Michael's house, he was quiet, nervous, tapping his fingers against the steering wheel. "Are you okay, son?" I asked him. "Yes, Mom," he replied without looking at me. Just listen to what we have to tell you with an open mind." Yes? That phrase froze my blood. We arrived at Michael's house in a nice subdivision, a pretty 2-story house that had always seemed too big for just 2 people. Jessica opened the door with a smile that did not reach her eyes. "Mother-in-law, so good to see you recovered. Come in, come in." Everyone was already in the living room. Sarah on the armchair checking her phone. Daniel leaning on the wall, biting his nails. Michael standing by the window with his arms crossed and that serious expression he used when he was going to say something important. Jessica guided me to the main sofa as if I were a guest of honor or as if I were the accused in a trial. "Do you want coffee, iced tea?" Jessica offered with that fake sweetness that already turned my stomach. "I am fine, thank you." An uncomfortable silence fell. The 4 of them looked at each other as if waiting for someone else to start. Finally, Michael cleared his throat. "Mom, we asked you to come because we are worried about you." I clenched my hands on my lap. "Worried?" "Yes." Sarah intervened without looking up from her phone. "You live alone in that huge house. You are not young anymore. The surgery showed that anything can happen at any moment. I could have died in that surgery," I said with a calm voice, "and none of you were there." The silence became dense. David looked down. Daniel stopped biting his nails. Michael clenched his jaw. "Precisely for that reason we are here," said Jessica, sitting next to me and taking my hand with her perfectly manicured ones. "Mrs. Emily, we could not be there because honestly, we all have very busy lives. Jobs, children, responsibilities. It is not that we do not love you, it is that we simply cannot be on the lookout all the time." Her words sounded reasonable, but there was poison underneath. "So what do you propose?" I asked, although I already knew the answer. Michael approached, taking some papers out of a folder that was on the coffee table. "We have been investigating options. We believe the best thing is for you to sign a power of attorney." "A power of attorney," I repeated. "Just for emergencies," David rushed to say. "In case something happens to you and you cannot make decisions. That way we can help you with medical paperwork payments, all that." "It is very common mother-in-law," added Jessica. "All older people do it. My mom already did it with my sisters. It is safer for everyone." I took the papers. They were legal documents full of technical words I barely understood, but I managed to read some phrases. Broad and sufficient power, asset administration, faculty to sell property. "This says you could sell my house," I pointed out. "Only in an extreme case," said Michael quickly. "If you need to enter a private hospital or a quality nursing home, those things cost money. The house is your biggest asset. We would have to be able to sell it to take care of you well." "A nursing home." The word came out like a whisper. "Not now," Sarah intervened for the first time with something resembling impatience. "But eventually, Mom, you are going to need specialized care. You already saw that none of us can be with you all the time." I I felt the walls closing in. It was a perfectly designed trap. They presented me with a reasonable solution to a problem they themselves had created with their absence. "And if I sign this," I said slowly, "then would you come to visit me? Then would I have my family back?" Daniel finally spoke with a soft voice, almost childlike. "Of course, Mommy. It is just that right now everything is very complicated. But if you are legally protected, we will all feel calmer." I looked at my youngest son, the boy I nursed, whom I cured of fevers, whom I hugged in every nightmare, and I saw a stranger lying to me with the same ease with which he breathed. "Besides," added Jessica, handing me a pen, "if you sign today, Michael and I promise to take turns visiting you every week, and I am sure the others too. Right, family?" Everyone nodded like vultures, waiting for the prey to finally surrender. I took the pen. I saw how everyone's eyes shone with anticipation. Michael even smiled. I brought the pen close to the paper, and then I remembered something. A rainy afternoon many years ago. Robert was sick. We already knew he had few months left. He took my hand and told me, "Emily, when I am gone, our children are going to want you to make fast decisions. They are going to pressure you. Please promise me something. Never let anyone take away your dignity. This house is yours. Your life is yours. Do not let anyone make you feel like you are a burden." I dropped the pen. "I need to think about it," I said, getting up. "These are important legal documents. I want my lawyer to review them first." The atmosphere changed instantly. The mask of concern cracked. "Your lawyer?" Michael asked with an irritated tone. "Mom, this is between family. You do not need a lawyer. Any sensible person reviews legal documents before signing," I replied calmly. "Or is that what you taught me when you studied administration, right, Michael?" Sarah stood up. "This is ridiculous. We are offering you help and you come out with mistrust." "It is not mistrust," I lied. "I just want to be sure of what I am signing." Jessica changed strategy. Tears appeared out of nowhere. "Mrs. Emily, do not you trust us? We are your family. How can you think we would hurt you?" I stared at her. "I trusted that you would be with me in the hospital. None came." The blow hit the mark. Everyone looked down. "Then there is nothing else to talk about for today," I said, walking towards the door. "David, will you take me home or should I call a taxi?" The ride back was tense and silent. When we arrived, David finally spoke. "Mom, we really just want to help." I looked him in the eyes. "David, if you really wanted to help, you would have been at the hospital with me. You would not have sold your great-grandmother's hutch for $1,200. His face paled. He said nothing else. I entered my house, locked the door, and let myself fall on the sofa. I had won this battle, but the war was just beginning, and now my children knew it would not be so easy to manipulate me. What I did not know was that this would make them more dangerous. Emily had just rejected their trap. Now her children would have to resort to an even darker plan, one she would discover in the most painful way possible. On Monday morning, I called Mr. Henderson. His secretary told me he could see me that same afternoon. "It is urgent," I told her, and it was. I felt time slipping through my fingers like sand. I spent the morning checking every corner of my house looking for more things that might have disappeared. I found empty spaces I had not noticed before. 2 silver figures Robert collected were missing, an antique wall clock that belonged to my father, even a lace shawl my mother embroidered by hand. They were not thefts by strangers. They were family looting each piece chosen for its resale value. At 4 in the afternoon, I took a taxi to Mr. Henderson's office downtown. His office was in an old building with tiled floors and high windows that let in the afternoon light. Everything in that place breathed permanence and trust. Mr. Henderson was 72 years old, completely white hair and thick-rimmed glasses that gave him the look of a wise owl. He stood up to greet me, and I noticed the genuine concern in his look when he saw my state. "Mrs. Emily, sit down, please. You look tired." "I just got out of the hospital," I explained, as I settled into the leather chair in front of his desk. "Gallbladder surgery, but I did not come to talk about that." I told him everything. The abandonment, the theft of my belongings, the meeting on Sunday, the power of attorney documents. As I spoke, Mr. Henderson took notes with a fountain pen, his expression becoming increasingly serious. When I finished, he took off his glasses and rubbed the bridge of his nose. "Mrs. Emily, what you tell me is more serious than you imagine. Did you bring the documents they wanted you to sign I took them out of my bag. He read them carefully, page by page, and with every line his frown deepened. "This is not a simple power for medical emergencies," he said finally. "This is a very broad power of attorney. If you had signed, your children would have total control over all your assets. They could sell your house without your consent, empty your bank accounts, even commit you to an institution against your will." I felt the air escape my lungs. Can they do that? With this document, yes. And the worst part is that it is drafted in a way that seems harmless, but the technical details are devastating. He paused. "Mrs. Emily, I have to tell you something else, and it will not be easy to hear." My heart raced. "What is it?" Mr. Henderson opened a drawer in his desk and took out a file. "2 months ago, your son Michael came to this office. He did not recognize me because the person who attended him was my partner, Ms. Brooks. He came to make inquiries about inheritance while living, about how an older person could transfer properties to their children, about the process to declare someone legally incompetent." The world tilted under my feet. Incompetent? Yes. He specifically asked what was needed for a judge to declare a person incapable of managing their own assets due to mental or physical health issues. Mr. Henderson opened the file and showed me the notes. Ms. Brooks explained the process. Medical evaluations, family statements, evidence that the person cannot make decisions for themselves are needed. "But I am perfectly fine in the head," I said, although my voice trembled. "That does not matter if they get doctors who say otherwise. And believe me, with money and the right connections, it is not difficult." He leaned forward. "Mrs. Emily, your children do not just want your house. They are planning to take away your complete autonomy." I remained silent, processing. Everything fit with terrifying clarity. The meeting on Sunday was not just to convince me to sign, it was the first step of a bigger plan. If I did not sign voluntarily, they would look for another way. "What else did you find out?" I asked, because something in Mr. Henderson's expression told me there was more. He hesitated, but finally continued. "I made some calls. I have contacts in banks and courts. It is not ethical, but you are my client, and I am worried about your well-being." He took out more papers. "Your son Daniel has debts registered in the credit bureau for $30,000, mainly with online betting houses and personal loans with very high interest." $30,000. My youngest son was up to his neck. "Sarah," continued Mr. Henderson, "has a bakery business that is technically bankrupt. She owes 3 months of rent on her premises, has unpaid suppliers, and a pending lawsuit from the IRS for tax evasion. We are talking about some $50,000 in total debts." Each figure was a stab. David and his wife, Karen, applied for a mortgage loan a month ago to buy an apartment in a new area of the city. The bank approved it on condition that they give a down payment of $60,000. They do not have it. They already committed to the seller, and if they do not pay in 3 weeks, they lose a deposit of $10,000 they already gave. "And Michael," I said with a hollow voice, knowing the worst would come at the end. Mr. Henderson nodded gravely. "Michael and Jessica have credit card debts for $45,000, late payments on their car, and 6 months ago they asked for a loan from one of those irregular financial companies, the ones that charge double if you do not pay on time. They owe $20,000, and interest is running." I did the mental math. Between the 4 of them, my children owed almost $250,000. And my house was worth $450,000. "Everyone needs money urgently," I murmured. "Everyone is desperate." "Exactly. And you are their solution." Mr. Henderson closed the file. "Mrs. Emily, I understand they are your children. I understand this must hurt in a way I cannot imagine. But you need to protect yourself. Now, what do you recommend? First, change your will immediately. Second, update the beneficiaries of any bank account or insurance. Third, consider selling the house and moving to a place where they cannot find you easily." "I am not going to run away from my own children," I said with surprising firmness. "This is my house. I bought it with Robert's insurance money. I kept it working as a seamstress for years. It is mine." "Then we have to be smarter than them." Mr. Henderson leaned back in his chair, thoughtful. Do you have anyone you trust? Anyone outside your children? I thought of my niece, Laura, the daughter of my sister, who died of cancer 7 years ago. Laura had been like a daughter to me. She worked as a nurse. She was a single mother of 2 children, and always she had treated me with respect and affection. She visited me every month without fail. She called me every week just to know how I was. My niece Laura, I said. Do you trust her completely with your life? Yes. Good. Then we are going to do the following. Mr. Henderson started writing. We are going to create a new will where Laura is the main beneficiary of the house. We are also going to establish a trust with clear instruction. If someone tries to declare you incompetent or commit you against your will, automatically everything passes to Laura and a charity foundation of your choice. A foundation for abandoned elderly people. It will be your legacy, Mrs. Emily, and it will be the best revenge that your children know that their greed not only cost them their inheritance, but helped people they tried to create. For the first time in days, something resembling a smile touched my lips. I like that idea. There is something else, added Mr. Henderson. Your children are going to try something soon. They are desperate. We need to be prepared. We need evidence of their true intentions. How? Letting them believe they have the advantage. He took off his glasses and stared at me. Mrs. Emily, would you be willing to act? What Mr. Henderson proposed to Emily was risky, but it was the only way to discover how far her own children were willing to go. I left Mr. Henderson's office with a plan, but also with a weight on my chest that barely let me breathe. I had to act as if nothing had changed, as if I remained the naive and trusting mother of always. But inside, something had hardened. Something that would never be soft again. The following days were strange. My children called me more often, but not to ask how I was. It was to come visit me, to help me with things around the house, to keep subtly pressuring about the documents. I received them with tea and cookies, pretending I was considering their proposal, telling them I needed more time. On Friday afternoon, I was in the kitchen preparing roast chicken when I heard my phone vibrate on the table. It was an incoming call from Michael. I did not answer in time, but he did not hang up. The call was still active. Then I heard voices, many voices. My son had pocket dialed me, or the phone had activated in his pocket. Whatever it was now, I could hear everything. You are being stubborn, was Michael's voice, clear and frustrated. It has been 2 weeks since the meeting, and she continues with her lawyer having to review the papers. Your mom was never completely stupid, replied Jessica. That is why we have to change strategy. I froze with the phone glued to my ear. They were on speakerphone. I could hear the echo of a closed place, probably Michael's car. And what do you propose? Was David's voice. What I told you last week, replied another female voice. If she does not sign nicely, we declare her incompetent. We get a psychiatrist to certify that she has senile dementia, that she cannot live alone. And how are we going to do that? Asked Daniel. Mom is fine in the head. It does not matter, said Michael with a cold, practical tone. David, your friend Dr. Miller, is a psychiatrist, right? The one who owes you that favor. Yes, but we'll use him. Have him go evaluate Mom. Have him say in his report that she has severe cognitive deterioration, that she is a danger to herself. With that, and the signatures of the 4 of us, a judge signs the incapacity in a week. My hand started shaking so much I almost dropped the phone. And then what? Asked Sarah. For the first time, her voice sounded unsure. Are we really going to put her in a nursing home? It is not a nursing home. It is a residence, corrected Jessica with a patient tone, as if talking to a child. There are very decent ones for $1,500 a month. We put her there, sell the house, pay our debts, and leave a fund for her to be taken care of. Everyone wins. She is going to hate us, muttered Sarah. She already hates us, Daniel blurted out with a bitter laugh, since she realized about the ring and the hutch. Did you see how she looked at us on Sunday as if we were trash? Well, we fix it ourselves, said Michael. Look, that house belongs more to us than to her. We grew up there. We have families, children, futures. She already lived her life. She already had her time. Now it is our turn. The words hit me like fists. She already lived her life, as if I were a finished procedure, a completed cycle that was no longer useful. Besides, continued Jessica, let us be honest. She lives in that huge house completely alone. It is a waste. We will put that money to better use. Michael and I can get out of debt and finally invest in the business we want. David and Karen buy their apartment. Sarah saves her bakery. And Daniel, I can pay what I owe and start from scratch. Finished my youngest son with a pleading voice asking for approval. Exactly, said Michael. It is a win-win solution. Mom will be taken care of in a professional place and we can finally live in peace. And if she resists, asked David. She is stubborn when she sets her mind to it. There was a long pause. Afterwards, Michael's voice sounded lower, more sinister. If she resists too much, there are medications that can keep her quiet calm. The psychiatrist can prescribe something for her anxiety that keeps her more manageable. Are you talking about drugging her? Sarah's voice rose in pitch. I am talking about medicating her appropriately for her condition, replied Michael with a professional tone, as if it were the most normal thing in the world. It is what is done in these cases. Silence. A silence where none of my other 3 children objected. None said that was wrong. None defended their mother. When do we do it? Asked Karen. Next week, replied Jessica. Dr. Miller goes on Wednesday to evaluate her. By Friday, we have the report. The following Monday, we start the legal process. In 2 weeks, maximum 3, the house is for sale. And Mom is committed, added Daniel with a flat, empty voice. Where will she be better cared for than with us? Insisted Michael. Believe me, it is best for everyone, including her, even if she does not understand it now. The call cut off. I stood in my kitchen with the phone in my hand, the chicken burning in the oven and the world crumbling around me. My legs gave way. I let myself fall into a chair, and for the first time in my life, I felt something worse than pain. I felt absolute emptiness. These were the children I had raised alone after being widowed at 44. The babies I nursed, whom I cared for in every illness, whom I defended from every injustice. Michael, for whom I sold my wedding band to pay for his college. David, for whom I worked double shifts, sewing uniforms to pay for private school. Sarah, whom I consoled in every heartbreak, in every failure. Daniel, my baby, whom I kept protecting even when everyone told me I was spoiling him. I had given them everything, everything. My years, my health, my dreams. Every dollar I earned was for them. Every sacrifice bore their names. And this is how they paid me back. They did not just want my house. They wanted to lock me up, drug me, turn me into a manageable nuisance while they distributed the spoils of my life. I got up slowly and turned off the oven. The chicken was black, ruined, like everything else. I went to my room and sat in front of the vanity mirror. The woman looking at me was 67 years old, scars from recent surgery, wrinkles of worry and pain, but she also had something new in her eyes, something hard, something dangerous. I took my phone and checked the call recording. There it was, 17 minutes of perfectly clear audio, the voices of my 4 children planning my destruction. I felt something strange grow in my chest. It was not sadness. I had already exhausted all my tears. This was different. It was absolute clarity mixed with steel determination. I dialed Mr. Henderson. He answered on the second ring. Mrs. Emily, are you okay? No, I replied with a surprisingly calm voice, but I will be. I need you to come to my house tomorrow morning. I have a recording you must hear, and I need us to prepare everything we discussed. We cannot wait any longer. What happened? My children just showed me who they really are, and I am going to show them who I am. That night, I did not sleep. I sat in the living room in the dark with the recording on my phone and a mental clarity I had not had in years. My children had made a mistake. They thought I was weak. They thought my mother's love would make me blind and obedient, but they forgot something important. Before being their mother, I was Emily Mendoza, the woman who survived poverty, the one who raised 4 children alone, the one who turned pain into strength over and over again. If they wanted war, they would have war, but it would be on my terms. And this time I would win. Emily was no longer the victim. Now she was the strategist. and her plan to recover her dignity was just beginning. Mr. Henderson arrived at my house at 8 in the morning on Saturday. He brought with him Ms. Brooks, his partner, a woman of about 50 with an intelligent gaze and direct manners that I liked immediately. I served them coffee and sweet bread that I had bought early at Joe's Bakery. I needed to maintain appearances of normality. Then I put the phone on the table and played the recording. I saw how their expressions changed as they listened. Mr. Henderson clenched his jaw. Ms. Brooks took quick notes underlining specific phrases. When it ended, the silence in my kitchen was as thick as fog. "This is pure gold," said Ms. Brooks finally. "It is direct evidence of conspiracy to commit fraud, attempted dispossession, and we could even argue attempted kidnapping. With this recording, any legal attempt by them is destroyed." "But I do not want to destroy them," I said, and both lawyers looked at me surprised. "I want them to learn, I want to recover my dignity, and I want them to understand what they did. But I do not want to see them in jail." Mr. Henderson nodded slowly. "Then we need a more subtle plan, more emotionally devastating than legally." "Exactly," I said. "I want them to feel what I felt. I want them to lose what they thought they won. And I want it to be by their own actions, not mine." During the next 2 hours, we designed the plan. It was risky. It required me to act convincingly, but it was perfect. I would make my children reveal their true nature before witnesses, before authorities, before themselves. "Are you sure you can do this?" asked Ms. Brooks. "It will require you to act as if you were losing your memory, as if you were confused. It will be painful to fake weakness." "I have pretended to be fine for weeks while I was bleeding inside," I replied. "I can pretend to be bad for a few days if that gives me back my life." We signed the new documents that same day. The will was modified. The house would go to Laura and a substantial part to a foundation we would create for elderly people abandoned by their families. The beneficiaries of my bank accounts changed. Everything was protected, legally armored. "Now comes the hard part," said Mr. Henderson. "You have to call your children and act like something is wrong. You have to plant the seed that their plan is working." That afternoon, I called Michael. I let the phone ring several times before answering as if I had trouble finding it. "Hello," I said with a slightly confused voice. "Mom, it is Michael." "Michael. Ah, yes, son. How are you?" I paused. Sorry, had we already spoken today? Silence on the other end. I could feel his mental gears turning. "No, Mom, we have not spoken. Are you okay?" Yes, I am fine. It is just that. I do not remember if I took my medicine this morning. I left the pills somewhere and I cannot find them." I let out a nervous laugh. "The truth is, lately, I forget many things. The other day, I did not remember where I kept the house deeds. What a silly thing, right?" Another silence. This one longer, more calculating. "The deeds, the ones for the house. Yes, those. I needed them to, well, I do not even remember what I needed them for." I sighed. "Oh, son, I think you are right. Maybe I do need help with these things. Living alone is being harder than I thought." "Mom," Michael's voice changed. It became softer, more interested. "Do you want me to come see you? I can stop by tomorrow, help you look for your papers, organize your medicines." "Is tomorrow Sunday?" I asked, as if I did not know. "Yes, Mom, tomorrow is Sunday." "Ah, well, yes, come if you want. I am going to make a pot roast." I paused. Or was it tomorrow when I was going to make pot roast? I do not remember. "Do not worry, Mom. I am coming at 11. Rest." I hung up and breathed deep. The trap was set. The next day, all 4 arrived. Not just Michael, everyone. Clearly, he had called his siblings to tell them about my confusion. They came with expressions of concern that would have been convincing if I had not heard that recording. I received them in my bathrobe with uncombed hair, dragging my slippers a bit. I had left papers scattered on the table, unwashed coffee mugs in different parts of the living room, all to create the image of mental disorder. "Children, what a surprise that you all come," I said with a vague smile. "Is it a special day? Is it my birthday?" "No, Mom," said Sarah sitting next to me. "Your birthday is in March. We are in November." "Ah, sure, November." I nodded as if I had just remembered. "Did you eat yet?" "I made rice, but I think I burned it." Or was it yesterday that I burned it? I'm not sure. I saw them exchange looks of opportunity. "Mom," David knelt in front of me. "Have you been taking your medicines?" "I think so, although sometimes I forget. There are so many." I touched my forehead. "And then I do not know if I already took them or if if I just thought about taking them. Daniel got up and started walking around the house, looking at every corner furtively. I saw him open drawers, check papers. He was looking for the deeds. I let him look. He would not find them. They were in a safety deposit box at the bank since the day before. Mom, Jessica sat on the other side taking my hand. We have been thinking. Maybe it really would be good if someone came to help you, or if you went to a place where you were better cared for. A place. I looked at her with confused eyes. What place? A residence, said Michael with a soft voice. A nice place where there are nurses, where you do not have to worry about cooking or cleaning, where there is always someone if you need anything. Sounds expensive, I murmured. Do not worry about that, he said quickly. We would take care of it. We could sell the house, and with that money, sell my house. Suddenly, my voice sounded clearer, more alert. I looked at everyone. This is my house. Robert and I bought it. You grew up here. We know Mom. Sarah squeezed my hand. But it is too big for you alone, and with the money you could be in a better place. I stayed quiet, looking at the floor. I let them think I was considering it. Then I said something I knew would tempt them to the limit. Maybe you are right. I am very tired, very confused. I looked up. If you believe it is the best, I trust you. You are my children. The room practically vibrated with their contained emotion. So would you sign the papers? Asked Michael, trying to sound casual. The power of attorney we talked about. Which papers? I tilted my head. The ones we showed you 2 weeks ago. The power one. I do not remember that, I said softly. But if you say it is important, I suppose I can sign. You would never hurt me, right? I saw their faces. I saw the naked greed in their eyes. I saw how they looked at each other with expressions of triumph. Never, Mom, lied Michael. We only want the best for you. Then it is okay, I said with a tired voice, but not today. I am very tired today. Maybe another day. Of course, Mom. Jessica patted my hand. Another day, soon. When they left, I stayed sitting in the same place for 20 minutes. Then I got up, combed my hair, washed my face, and called Mr. Henderson. They took the bait, I told him. Now we have to prepare the next phase. Are you ready for what comes? He asked. More than ready, I replied. I am going to make my children face exactly what they are, and I am going to do it in front of all the people who need to see it. My metamorphosis was complete. I was no longer Emily the selfless mother. Now I was Emily the strategist, and my next move would leave them all breathless. Emily had prepared the perfect stage, but for her plan to work, she needed her children to take the final step, and they would take it very soon. Wednesday arrived as planned. At 3 p.m, the doorbell rang. It was David, accompanied by a thin man of about 50 in a white coat and black briefcase. Dr. Miller, the psychiatrist friend who was going to certify my alleged dementia. What my children did not know was that Mr. Henderson had made his own arrangements. In my living room, hidden behind a picture frame, was a tiny camera. In the entrance vase, a microphone. Everything perfectly legal because it was my house and I had given my consent. Ms. Brooks was in her car outside monitoring everything in real time. Mom, said David with that fake smile that already turned my stomach. Look, I brought Dr. Miller. He is a friend of mine. He just wants to ask you some questions to see how you are doing health-wise. A doctor. I feigned confusion. Am I sick? No, Mrs. Emily. Dr. Miller sat in front of me, notebook in hand. It is just a routine evaluation. Your son is worried about you. During the next hour, the doctor asked me questions designed to make me appear incompetent. What day is today? What year are we in? Can you tell me what you had for breakfast? Do you remember where you kept important documents? I answered with the perfect mix of confusion and lucidity. Sometimes I got it right. Sometimes I doubted, sometimes I contradicted myself. Enough to seem deteriorating, but not so severe as to make it obvious I was acting. David intervened strategically. Mom has forgotten to take her medicines several times. The other day she left the stove on. She gets confused with dates constantly. All lies. All said with the conviction of someone who believes they are doing the right thing. Dr. Miller took notes. He nodded gravely. Upon finishing, he told David in a low voice, but not low enough for me not to hear. It is clear there is significant cognitive deterioration. I am going to recommend evaluation to determine if she can continue living independently. And the document? David asked anxiously. The report, you will have it by Friday. With this and the signatures of all the siblings, the legal process will be fast. They left, leaving me resting. As soon as I locked the door, I breathed deep and called Mr. Henderson. "We have it all recorded," he said with satisfaction in his voice. "This is conspiracy to commit fraud documented. Dr. Miller can lose his license for this." "Not yet," I told him. "Let them get to the end. I want them to sink themselves." On Friday, as anticipated, Michael called me to organize an urgent family meeting for Sunday. "It is important, Mom. We are going to talk about your future." His voice was poisoned honey. "My future?" I asked with a small voice. "Yes, Mom. So you are better cared for. We love you." On Sunday, everyone arrived at 11 in the morning, but this time, they did not come alone. Michael brought a thick folder with documents. Jessica brought brochures for senior living residences. Everyone dressed formally as if it were a special occasion. What they did not know was that I had also invited some others. I received them in the living room, sitting on my favorite sofa with the same bathrobe and confused expression of previous days. "Children, how nice that you all come. Is it Christmas?" "No, Mom," said Sarah, sitting down. "It is still November. Remember, we talked about this." Michael opened his folder. "Mom, we brought the papers you need to sign. It is for your protection. David explained to you that the doctor came to see you, right?" "A doc." I blinked. "I think so. I think someone came." "Yes, Mom." David approached, "and he says you need help, that you can no longer live alone. So we are going to help you. We found a beautiful place." Jessica put the brochures in front of me. "Look, it has gardens, nurses, 24 hours activities. You are going to be very well there." I took the brochures with trembling hands. They were from a cheap nursing home on the outskirts of the city. Nothing like the $5,000 a month they had mentioned in their conversation. This one cost $1,500. They were not even going to spend to commit me decently. "Are you going to take me to live there?" I asked with a broken voice. "It is for the best," said Daniel without being able to look me in the eyes. "There you will be taken care of. And my house, we will take care of the house." Michael put the documents in front of me. "That is why you need to sign this. It is a power so we can sell the house and manage the money to pay for your residence." "But I want my house," I said, and let my voice tremble. "This is my house. I live here with Robert." There was an uncomfortable silence. Sarah cleared her throat. "Mom-Dad died 23 years ago." "Died?" I opened my eyes wide. "When perfect. I had them right where I wanted them. I saw their expressions a mix of fake pity and real impatience. They thought they had won." "Mom." Michael put the pen in my hand. "Sign here. We will take care of everything. Trust us." I took the pen. I brought the paper closer. I saw everyone holding their breath. And then the doorbell rang. Everyone tensed up. "Are you expecting someone, Mom?" "I do not know," I said with genuine confusion in this case. Was I expecting someone? David went to open the door, and his face paled when he saw who was there. Mr. Henderson entered first with his leather briefcase and his serious expression. Behind him came Ms. Brooks, and behind her my niece Laura with tears in her eyes, but jaw clenched. "What is happening here?" asked Mr. Henderson with a voice that rumbled in the room. "And who are you?" Michael stood up, his posture defensive. "I am Henderson, lawyer for Mrs. Emily Mendoza, and this meeting is over." "This is a family matter," said Jessica. "It has nothing to do with you. It has everything to do with me when you are trying to commit fraud against my client," replied Ms. Brooks, taking out her own folder. "We have documented every step of your plan to strip Mrs. Emily of her assets through deception and falsification of medical documents." The color left the faces of my 4 children. "I do not know what you are talking about," stuttered Michael. "No." Mr. Henderson took out his phone. "Maybe this will refresh your memory." And he played the recording. That call from last Friday where they planned everything. Declare me incompetent, drug me if necessary, sell my house, commit me to the cheapest asylum. Their own voices filled the room. Every word, every plan, every betrayal in perfectly clear audio. I saw reality hit them. David dropped into a chair. Sarah covered her mouth. Daniel looked at the floor as if he wanted it to swallow him. Jessica and Karen looked at each other with panic, and Michael, my eldest son, in whom I had trusted the most, clenched his fists with impotent fury. That was a private conversation," he managed to say. "That your mother heard?" I replied. And my voice was no longer that of a confused old woman. It was clear, strong, firm. "You pocket-dialed Michael, and I heard every word of your plan to destroy me." I stood up slowly. I no longer dragged my feet. I no longer trembled. I looked at each one by one. "You thought I was a stupid old woman," I continued. "You thought you could manipulate me, rob me, lock me up. You thought my mother's love would make me blind. Mom, David tried to speak. No, my voice came out like a whip. I am not your mom anymore. A mother is someone you respect, someone you care for, someone you love. I was that for you. But you, to me, you were thieves waiting for me to die. Laura approached and took my arm. Her presence was an anchor. Now you are going to hear what is going to happen, said Mr. Henderson. Mrs. Emily has modified her will. This house, along with a significant percentage of her assets, will go to her niece Laura and a foundation for abandoned elderly people. A foundation that will bear the name of her late husband, Robert Mendoza. You cannot do that, shouted Jessica. We are her family. You stopped being family the day you abandoned her in the hospital, replied Ms. Brooks coldly. But there is more. We have documented all your actions, the theft of the ring and the hutch, the conspiracy with Dr. Miller, who, by the way, is already being investigated by the medical board, and the attempted fraud through false documents. We could file criminal charges, continued Mr. Henderson, but Mrs. Emily, in her infinite generosity, has decided not to. The four looked at me with a mix of relief and confusion. However, I added, there are conditions. The conditions that Emily was about to impose would change everything, and her children would finally understand the real price of betrayal. The silence in my living room was so thick it could be cut with a knife. My four children looked at me as if they were seeing me for the first time. And maybe it was true because the woman in front of them was no longer the submissive mother they knew. Sit down, I ordered. It was not a suggestion. It was an order, and they obeyed like scared children. Laura remained standing by my side, her hand still on my arm. Mr. Henderson and Ms. Brooks positioned themselves behind the sofa as silent witnesses to this family trial. I am going to tell you exactly what is going to happen. I began with a calm but lethal voice, and you are going to listen to every word without interrupting. Understood? No one answered. I took it as a yes. First, your father's ring and my grandmother's hutch. I took an envelope out of my pocket. I opened it and dropped a wad of bills on the table. Here are the $3,200 you got for selling the only things that had true sentimental value to me. Mr. Henderson took care of tracking the sales and recovering the money from your accounts. Michael opened his mouth to protest, but Mr. Henderson raised a hand. Everything legal. Mrs. Emily filed the corresponding reports. You sold stolen property. Technically, you could face charges, but you won't, I continued, because I am not going to report you, not because you don't deserve it, but because I don't want my grandchildren growing up visiting their parents in jail. I saw how that mention of my grandkids hit them. Sarah began to cry silently. Second, this house. I walked to the window and looked out at the street where I had played with them when they were children. This house that your father and I bought with his life insurance money. This house that I kept working until my fingers bled from so much sewing. This house where I raised the four of you. This house will no longer be yours. Mom, please, started Daniel. My will, I interrupted him, clearly states that upon dying, 60% of the value of this house will go to Laura, who has been more of a daughter to me in these last years than any of you. The remaining 40% will go to the Robert Mendoza Foundation for Abandoned Elderly. Michael stood up abruptly. That is unfair. We are your biological children. Sit down, Michael. My voice cut the air. Because I am not finished yet. He sat down slowly, rage contorting his face. Besides that, I took another paper out of my pocket. Mr. Henderson prepared a very interesting document. It is called a Declaration of Vital Intent. In it, I establish that if at any moment someone tries to declare me incompetent without my consent, or commit me against my will, or manage my assets without a duly grounded court order, a clause is automatically activated. Everything, absolutely everything, passes immediately to Laura and the foundation. You remain completely out, without a dime, with nothing. Ms. Brooks added, this document is registered before a notary and has copies in 3 different banking institutions. It is contestable only with my death or with medical evidence from multiple independent specialists. Dr. Miller can no longer help you. His report became invalid when we documented his conspiracy. David had his head in his hand. Karen was crying. Jessica looked at Michael, blaming him for everything. Sarah sobbed without consolation. Daniel looked like a lost child. Third, I continued, and my voice cracked slightly here because this part hurt even me. Your grandchildren. My grandchildren. I looked up and stared directly at them. Sebastian is 8 years old. Valerie is 6. David's twins are 5 and Andrea Sarah's daughter is 4. Naming them cost me because I did love them unconditionally. They have no fault for what you did, so I have created an educational trust for each one, $25,000 per child that they will receive when they turn 18 exclusively for university education. I saw surprise on their faces. They did not expect that. That money, I clarified, comes from my life savings from the work you thought was worth nothing, and they will receive it directly without passing through you. Not a dime. Mom, Sarah tried to speak through tears. No, I raised my hand. You had your chance to speak when you were planning to drug me when you decided I had already lived enough. Now it is my turn. I walked back to the center of the room and faced them all. 4th Dr. Miller. We already filed a formal complaint with the Board of Psychiatrists. His false evaluation is being investigated. He will probably lose his license. And you, I looked specifically at David, you are going to have to explain to your friend why you involved him in fraud. David paled even more. 5th, the documents you brought today for me to sign. Mr. Henderson took them from the table. They became void the moment we played the recording. They are evidence of attempted fraud. We keep them in case one day you decide to try something similar. I paused. I breathed deep. What was coming was the hardest part. And 6th, you. I looked at them one by one. My firstborn who sold my past for $2,000. My second son who was too cowardly to defend his mother. My only daughter who confused my love with preference and turned resentment into revenge. My youngest son who never grew up and now paid the price. I loved you with every fiber of my being, I said, and tears began to roll down my cheeks. I gave you everything, my youth, my health, my dreams. When your father died and I was left alone with 4 children under 19, I could have given up. I could have looked for someone to support me, but I did not because you were my world. My voice broke, but I continued. I worked double shifts. I sold even my wedding band. I sewed until my fingers bled. I skipped meals so you would eat. I wore old clothes so you would have new uniforms. And when you grew up and formed your families, I kept giving to you. Money for down payments, for emergencies, for your businesses. I never said no when you needed something. Michael had tears in his eyes now. Everyone did. And when I finally needed you when I was in that hospital facing a surgery that could have killed me, none of you showed up. Not a single one. My voice rose in volume. You abandoned me in the most vulnerable moment of my life, and then while I recovered alone, you entered my house and robbed me. You sold the only tangible memories I had left of the people I love. We are sorry, sobbed Sarah. Are you sorry? My laugh was bitter. Are you sorry for doing it? Or sorry I caught you? No one answered. The answer was clear on their ashamed faces. This is what is going to happen now, I said with regained firmness. You can continue being part of my life or you can leave, but if you stay, it will be on my terms. No fake visits looking for opportunity. No questions about money or inheritances. No manipulations. I took the last document out of my pocket. Mr. Henderson prepared an agreement. If you want to have any relationship with me from now on, you sign it. In it, you commit to respecting my decisions, to not trying to manipulate or control me, and to accept that my will and my assets are my business and no one else's. And if we do not sign, asked Michael with a hoarse voice. I looked him straight in the eyes. Then you never set foot in this house again. You never call me again. And when I die, you will find out through the newspaper. The weight of those words fell on them like a tombstone. You have a week to decide, I said. Mr. Henderson will send you copies of the agreement. If you sign, we can try to rebuild something. It will not be the same. It will never be the same again. But maybe with years of genuine effort on your part, we can have some kind of relationship. I approached the door and opened it. Now leave. All of you. I need to rest, and I need this house to feel like my home again, not like a battlefield. One by one, they got up. Jessica and Karen left quickly without looking back. Daniel stopped in front of me with tears rolling down his face. Mom, But he did not find the words. He just lowered his head and left. David looked at me with red eyes. Forgive me. That was all he said before leaving. Sarah stopped and hugged me. I did not return the hug. All my life, I thought you did not love me, she whispered. And now I understand that you always loved me. It was me who did not know how to see it. I released her gently. "You have a week, Sarah. Michael was the last, my firstborn, the boy in whom I placed so many hopes. He stood in front of me with his pride destroyed. I thought I was doing the right thing," he said with a broken voice. "I thought I was protecting you." "No, Michael," I replied with infinite weariness. "You thought you were protecting your inheritance. There is a huge difference." He left without saying more. I closed the door and leaned against it. The tears I had contained finally came out. Laura hugged me while I cried. "You did well, Auntie," she whispered. "It was the right thing." "Why does doing the right thing hurt so much?" I asked between sobs. "Because real love always hurts when it is betrayed," she replied. "But it also heals. You will see." Mr. Henderson and Ms. Brooks said goodbye shortly after leaving me alone with Laura. We sat in the living room in silence while the afternoon turned into night. Emily had won the battle, but the true challenge was just beginning, learning to live with the victory. 6 months later, I woke up in my house with the sun entering through my bedroom window. The surgery wound had healed completely, but the invisible scars took more time. Some mornings still hurt. I got up slowly, no longer out of physical pain, but out of habit. I brewed fresh coffee in the kitchen, which now felt bigger and quieter, but also more mine. While the aroma filled the space, I remembered how that first morning after the confrontation had been. The emptiness, the feeling of having won a war but lost a family, except I had not lost it all. Laura came to visit me twice a week. Her children, my grandnephews of 7 and 9, filled the house with laughter on Sundays. They did not carry the weight of betrayal or expectations. They only brought simple, honest love without conditions. And then there were my own grandchildren. Of my 4 children, only Sarah signed the agreement. She did it 3 days after the deadline. She arrived alone one rainy afternoon with swollen eyes and the paper in her hands. "I do not expect you to forgive me," she had said, "but I want to try. I want Andrea to know the real you, not the grandmother I invented in my head out of my own resentment." And she was trying. She came every 2 weeks, always punctual, always respectful. She did not ask for money. She did not mention the inheritance. She only brought Andrea, and we drank tea while the girl played in the garden. Conversations were awkward at first, full of heavy silences. But slowly, very slowly, we were building something new, something honest. The other 3 did not sign. Michael tried to negotiate. He sent messages saying the agreement was too severe, that he needed fairer terms. Mr. Henderson replied that there was no negotiation possible. We did not hear from him again. I found out through Sarah that he and Jessica divorced 2 months after everything. Apparently, when it became clear there would be no inheritance to chase, Jessica decided to look for better opportunities elsewhere. David sent a letter, a handwritten letter that arrived 4 weeks after the confrontation. He did not ask for forgiveness directly, but explained how Karen had manipulated him for years, how he had felt trapped between his wife and his mother, how he chose wrong. The letter ended saying, "I understand if you do not want to see me again. I just wanted you to know that I did love you, Mom. I just did not know how to show it." He did not sign the agreement, but he did not ask for anything again either. We existed in a mutual limbo of distant respect. Daniel simply disappeared. Sarah told me he had fled to another state to escape his creditors. Every now and then I heard news from third parties that he was working in a restaurant, that he had met someone, that he was still betting. It was like having a ghost son present in my memory but absent from my life. And strangely, with time, that absence hurt less. I walked to my study, the room I had turned into the foundation office. On the desk were piles of applications, thank you letters, photographs of elderly people who now received help thanks to the Robert Mendoza Foundation. We had helped 17 people in these 6 months, elderly people abandoned in hospitals, without family, grandparents evicted from their own homes by greedy children, seniors who needed legal support to protect their assets. Each story was a mirror of mine, and every time we helped someone, I felt that my children's betrayal acquired a greater meaning. Their selfishness had sown seeds of protection for others. Laura handled the administrative part of the foundation with efficiency and heart. Mr. Henderson offered pro bono legal services 2 days a month. Ms. Brooks gave free workshops on asset protection for seniors. I, with my firsthand experience, spoke with every person who came looking for help. I told them my story showed them that surviving was possible, that recovering dignity was possible. And for the first time in decades, I felt my life had purpose beyond being a mother. The doorbell rang, taking me out of my thoughts. It was Laura with folders under her arm and a smile on her face. "Auntie, I have news," she said as she entered. "Remember Mr. Williams, the one whose children tried to sell his land while he was hospitalized? Of course. He won the case. The judge declared the sale void and fined the children for fraud. Also, he implemented protection measures. He asked me to tell you thank you for giving him the courage to fight." I felt warmth in my chest. "That is wonderful." We spent the morning reviewing new cases, planning fundraising events, organizing workshops. At 1, I prepared lunch for both of us. Roast beef, mashed potatoes, fresh bread. Laura helped me set the table and we ate, talking about everything and nothing like real families do. In the afternoon after Laura left, I sat in the garden with a cup of tea. I observed the bougainvilleas Robert had planted 30 years ago, still blooming, vibrant and strong. Survivors like me. My phone vibrated. A message from Sarah. "Auntie Andrea asks if she can stay over this Friday. She wants you to teach her how to make those walnut cookies she likes so much." I replied, "Of course, tell her I am buying the ingredients." Another message, this one from an unknown number. "Mrs. Emily, I am Mary Towers. Ms. Brooks gave me your contact. My mother-in-law is going through a situation similar to yours. Could we talk?" I replied, "Call me tomorrow at 10. I will gladly listen." I put the phone away and looked at the sky starting to turn orange with the sunset. I thought of Robert, of how he would have handled all this, probably with less theater and more direct legal action. But I think he would be proud of me anyway, proud that I finally learned not to let anyone take away my dignity. I thought of my children, of the love I felt for them when they were born, of the sacrifices I made without hesitation, of the hopes I placed in them, all that had been real. It was not a mistake to love deeply. The mistake was loving without limits, without expecting reciprocity, without demanding respect. Now I understood that a mother's love should not be unconditional to the point of self-destruction. That setting limits was not stopping loving. It was loving oneself enough not to allow abuse. Did I miss them? Yes. Some nights, I still cried for the 8-year-old Michael who climbed into my bed during storms, for the 12-year-old David who helped me sew at night when orders piled up, for the teenage Sarah who combed my hair and said she wanted to be like me, for the little Daniel who said when he grew up he would buy me a bigger house. But those children no longer existed. They had grown up and chosen their path, and I had to choose mine. I went inside when the sun set completely. I made a light dinner. I watched a TV show I liked. I took a long bath with aromatic salts Laura gave me. Simple things that before would have seemed selfish to me, but that now I understood were necessary self-care. Before sleeping, I opened the drawer of my nightstand where I kept the photograph of Robert and the children, all smiling, all together in a time when innocence was still possible. I looked at it for a long time. "I did it, my love," I whispered to the photo. I defended what was ours. I defended my dignity. I know it hurts. I know it is not the happy ending we imagined, but it is the fair ending, and that has to be enough. I put the photo away and turned off the light. The next day would be another day for the foundation, another opportunity to help someone, another opportunity to turn my pain into purpose, because that was the lesson I had learned with blood and tears. You cannot control how they betray you, but you can control how you get up afterwards. You cannot force people to value you, but you can choose to value yourself. You cannot change the past, but you can decide what legacy you leave. And my legacy would no longer be being the mother who gave everything until she was left empty. It would be being the woman who, when she hit rock bottom, found the strength to build wings. I closed my eyes with one last truth resonating in my mind. My children taught me that family is not blood. It is loyalty. I lost 4 children, but I gained my dignity, and that no one can take away from me. This is my story. The story of Emily Mendoza, a 67-year-old woman who survived abandonment, betrayal, and attempted dispossession by her own children. A woman who had to choose between blind love and self-love. If you are reading this and going through something similar, I want you to know something. Your value does not depend on those who abandoned you. You do not depend on the validation of your children, your relatives, or anyone who tries to make you feel like a burden. You are worth who you are, for what you have survived, for the dignity you carry with you. And if one day you have to choose between being loved or being respected, choose respect. Because love without respect is disguised manipulation. It is never too late to recover your life. It is never too late to set limits. It is never too late to say, enough is enough, because true wealth is not in what you possess, but in what you do not allow them to take from you. And have you lived a similar story? Do you know someone who is going through this? Leave me your comment telling me from what part of the world you are joining us today. Like if this story made you reflect and subscribe to continue listening to real-life stories that teach us about dignity, justice, and self-love, because together we are stronger, and no one deserves to be treated as invisible in their own life.